Welcome to This Sporting Planet, the world's view of sport, this week from the UK, the USA, and here in Singapore. This is the show that brings together international voices who are passionate about sport and live and work in the regions where major events are taking place. My name is Edward Russell, alongside Natalie Sawyer and Todd Harris, and this episode, we are continuing our look back on some of our favourite moments from the last few months of This Sporting Planet.
We've had the chance to speak to some amazing athletes in 2025, from Olympic and Paralympic medalists to major winners, stars who've lifted the biggest trophies in football to cricketing heroes. We've left no stone unturned to bring you the most interesting perspectives from across the world of sport. A little bit later, you'll hear excerpts from our previews of both the Cricket and Rugby World Cups later this year with Indian cricket journalist Anish Ghosh and former rugby star Rachel Burford. We'll also give you an insight on what to expect from the closing stages of the football or soccer transfer window.
But first, I wanted to revisit an incredibly important chat the three of us had recently about mental health in elite sport. It came after an interview I did with the golfer Chris Wood, which you can hear in full on our YouTube channel, where he admitted having some really dark moments in recent times. Here's some of that chat. I know you've been speaking about mental health and your own game as well. If you're happy to, are you able to tell us a little bit about the journey you've been on with all of that?
Yeah, I mean, since 2019, really, I really struggled on the course. I was working with coaches from 2015 to 2018, where I had a year of playing the best golf of my career, and I won the BMW PGA, I won in the Austrian Open, I got into the Ryder Cup. And towards the end of 2016, I could start to feel things in my swing that weren't familiar. The ball flight I was hitting became very weak. But I knew where the ball was going. So I was playable. 2017, I don't think I had any standout results, but I think I've finished nicely in the order of merit. 2018, I had 3 runners-up finishes, but I knew this doesn't feel right. Something's not right, and I went to see another coach, and ended up hitting seriously destructive shots with my driver in particular that led me to not have a driver in the bag. Which, when you're competing on tour, you're just giving up so much over the course of a week, and I was practicing and hitting worse shots and feeling like, well, I'm with a great coach, keep doing what he's saying. And I got further and further away, really, from what I feel was my golf swing. So that led me to a point of complete burnout in 2023, where losing my card on tour was what made me stop. And I went and played a couple of events in South Africa early 2023 on the Challenge Tour, because, you feel like you should play. And I was on the phone to my parents after one of the rounds, and I just broke down, and I was in absolute bits. And I came home straight away, and that was it. And the first time back on the golf course in the summer that year, my coach, who's sort of more than a coach, like a really good friend, was like, right, let's get back on the golf course, but we're going out with a 6-iron and a putter for 9 holes. So I didn't have any trauma attached to those clubs, so it was a light way to step back into the game. But weirdly, I was watching a lot of golf. Like, I watched it all on the telly, and I'm just sat there thinking, I can hit that shot. I can feel how I can hit that shot. And I suppose that's what's kept me in it, really, is my inner belief has never left me. You have really difficult times, and but inside I've never, ever felt like I want to stop. And that's what's kept me going, to the point where I am today, where I'm still working towards getting my card back. But each day I practice, I feel like we've got a little saying amongst my team that I work with, like, Every day we want to make the boat go faster. Like, I'm the boat. How do we make the boat go faster? So the foot's down every day to try and get better. And it's become so much more about no more trauma for me, which is very refreshing to hear from coaches, rather than golf swing technique and keep hitting balls and that, going down that road again. So yeah, it's just been a difficult period, but you know, I'm lucky. I've got a great home life, busy with 4 kids, but I've got a trooper of a wife who takes a lot of the hit on that side of things. So yeah, I'm in a much better place.
Thanks to Chris, and as ever, if you want to hear the full chat with him, you can head over to our This Sporting Planet YouTube channel, and it'll have more of that frank and honest issue that he discussed about when he was referring to his own mental health struggles over the last few years. And it does seem, Edward and Todd, that we are seeing more and more high-level elite athletes talking about the struggles of mental health. You know, Chris was saying it there. We mentioned in our last podcast, when we briefly mentioned the World Aquatics, that Adam Peaty won't be there for Great Britain because he's dealing with his own mental health problems as well. You know, it's something that we do need to talk about more. And Chris was very open about it and says he wants to talk about it because it should be normalized at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right in saying that it isn't something that has just become more apparent and more people are suffering. It's just become easier to talk about. And we're hearing that more people are indeed suffering from that. And it's something, isn't it? When we talk about sport, obviously, we're so used to physical injuries that are so obvious and so apparent. And there's a very easy pathway to heal from that. You go to the doctors, you do your physio, you do your rehab, but it's a lot harder when it's mental, because a lot of the times you don't even know, as Chris was saying there, that there's necessarily something not working quite right up there.
Yeah, and I think it's so refreshing being the elder statesman in the room. I will say that when I began my career, this was not something you would necessarily discuss or even ask the question about. So kudos to you, Natalie. I think it was a great interview. Chris did a fantastic job normalizing it. And I think the best thing that I came away from is he seems to be in a good place. You know, he mentioned his wife and his kids, and he's got balance. And I think that is beyond everything else. His mental health is the most important thing, and that's going to allow him to go forward. And I think there's a lot of athletes who have struggled with that their entire lives, of never coming to grips with, you know, I have some weaknesses, I have some doubts about my game or where I am or my position. And they've now come to grips with, hey, maybe I can talk to someone about this. So it was a great interview. And gosh, I now I just want to root for Chris Wood.
Yeah, really refreshing to hear from Chris talking about his recent experiences so openly. And you might remember all the way back in January, Madison Keys spoke about how therapy has helped her reach the top of her game as well. That was just after she'd won the Australian Open.
I really kind of bought into it. And I think in the past, I had always kind of tried to go the sports therapy route, where it was more about routine and controlling the things you can control and all of that. And I felt like I was always good enough at that. But to really start kind of digging in on how I felt about myself and really being honest with myself about it, it was really hard, because I didn't really want to be the person that felt like I was really struggling, but I was starting to really struggle with it. So just being really honest and actually getting help and actually talking to someone. And not just about tennis, but about how I felt about myself. Again, very uncomfortable, and I never really looked to be uncomfortable. So I honestly think that had I not done that, then I wouldn't be sitting here.
A reminder, you can always keep up to date with the latest news and hear from the biggest names from the world of sport on our YouTube and social channels to get your daily sporting fix. Up next, we want to look ahead to the Cricket World Cup, which begins in India and Sri Lanka at the end of next month. After a blockbuster summer of men's cricket, including the Test series between England and India, the women's game takes center stage here, with Australia looking to defend the title they won in 2022. Earlier this year, This Sporting Planet's Colette Wong caught up with sports journalist, cricketer, commentator, and documentary producer Anisha Ghosh to talk about what we can expect from the tournament.
I would love for India to make the most of it and put their best foot forward in an India home World Cup in September, October, November, because that elusive maiden ODI world title will change women's sport in India for good, not just cricket. The moment India win that World Cup, that women's World Cup in the T20 or the ODI format, it's going to hit through the roof. And the entire system of producers, journalists, the gig economy around women's cricket will go the way it has in the men's game.
Yeah, I know we've talked so much about the top level of the women's game in cricket, especially with the ODI World Cup coming. And there's a lot of excitement I could tell in India and within you. And I'm sure that's reflected in all cricket fans in India. But I wanted to bring it back to the grassroots level, because obviously it all has to start somewhere. And in your opinion, have the pathways to pursuing cricket seriously for girls, has that strengthened over the years? What is it like now?
100%. And again, the WPL has played a part, because right now, if you ask most laypersons who know something about the existence of women's cricket in India, and if they happen to be a parent, plus somebody who is envisioning a future of their ward, of their child in sport, more specifically in cricket, if they happen to be the parent of a female child, there is a possibility they will think of the WPL being a money mentor. That makes women's cricket in India an immensely viable option, which wasn't there before 2023, which is why March 4th, 2023 is always going to be a red letter day in sport in India and globally, because we've seen the spike in interest on the ground level. We've seen more academies across metropolitan cities like my hometown, Kolkata, and even Mumbai, even Bengaluru. You go to these cricket academies, either they were only for boys / men earlier. Now they have formed a women's / girls wing, or those that had been only focusing on girls / women's cricket have experienced and enjoyed a severe uptick in enrollment. To quote the great tennis legend Billie Jean King, if you cannot see your idols, you wouldn't want to be like them. You cannot see, you cannot be. So if you want to be something, you've got to see those role models. And right now, watching a lot of these players, not just at the WPL, but also at the international matches on television, on their mobile phones, has engendered this uptick in enrollment at the domestic level I was talking about. And since the 2017 ODI World Cup, the BCCI has also gone on to include a number of domestic age group tournaments. Right after the 2017 ODI World Cup, they introduced that under-16 women's tournament, which is very crucial. Now the ICC has put in place the under-19 World Cup, right? So you have to have the age group feeder line in place as well, not just in India, but globally, to bring up these young girls into and turn them into women who are responsible towards themselves, their families, and the society. And it's just a matter of time. I'm a firm believer that they will show that responsibility on the field in terms of winning that elusive maiden senior women's world title.
Now, you talk about responsibility there, and you, Anisha, working in the media. I just wonder whether you take on an extra responsibility or a feeling of responsibility in trying to promote the women's game because of all the good that it can do. Is that working? Is there, I'm sure there is more coverage of the women's game, but is there enough?
A lot can be done more. A lot can be done better, sure. But I would like to look at the positives as to how the landscape has changed in terms of women's cricket not being available for viewing on any space. You see a lot that has happened. You have highlights, clips available. You have a lot of features and documentaries being commissioned. I'd love to make one myself on women's cricket. I'm looking for a funder. Hey, anyone out there, please get I need the monies to make it on Indian women's cricket. Hey. No, jokes apart. That is not a joke, by the way. That is a reality that has been living in my head rent-free. But a lot is being done. A lot is being done to make women's cricket watchable, accessible. And the way it is being packaged also, because I work behind the scenes with clients like the ICC. I've worked with the host broadcaster of the first ever WPL, Geo Cinema. There was a lot of genuine, good intention to make the product more watchable, to give it a multifacetedness in terms of storytelling. There's an entire team of features, broadcasters, videographers that are hired by the ICC to make sure these stories are told well, editors as well. So we form a part, and I take a lot of pride in the people I work with at the ICC level to tell these stories. Some great producers, fellow producers, great editors, great videographers. But I'd love to see more women doing the same. Ever since going from a full-time multimedia journalist to now a freelancer who has gotten the opportunity through the ecosystem to commentate in cricket, work with the Olympics, work with FIFA, work as a producer, work as a host, presenter, etc. It is because of cricket, period. And it is because 90%, I would say it's because of women's cricket. And out of that, I would say 60 to 65% is because of the Indian women's cricket team. So there's a lot to be excited about. And the reason I'm saying this right now is to potentially maybe just drive home the idea of the possibility being huge to any young kid, male or female, watching this podcast. And if they think women's cricket or women's sport is something they buy into, something they can relate with, something they want to work in, there is a great opportunity for you to do that. So just put your head down and look for those good people out there and look for those stories. It's out there for you to tell the story to the world.
Cannot wait for the Cricket World Cup. And I know lots of the This Sporting Planet team can't wait for the Rugby World Cup, with England looking to continue their unbeaten streak since the last tournament in 2022. Rachel Burford won the tournament with England in 2014, and she told Jack Winstanley why the Red Roses are hot favourites heading into this year's edition of the tournament.
It's such a historical tournament that's been going on for so long. It obviously has the wealth of the history from the men's side, and then also with the women. And it's probably one of the biggest, longest standing women's international tournament that, gets everybody very excited about. It's kind of that battle and that bragging rights for in Europe, who's the best. And over the years, it's obviously developed and got a lot tougher. And you've seen nationalities really step up in various times in cycles of their own. But it's definitely one of those that, it's the tournament that you start thinking about first before anything else. And as soon as you kind of get started into your club season here in the Northern Hemisphere, you start thinking about, well, Six Nations is around the corner. It's a massive tournament, and it's one of the best in women's rugby.
So looking ahead to the World Cup then, that's coming to England later in the year, how big an advantage will it be for England to have a home World Cup? And I guess as well, did it play a part in New Zealand winning the tournament on home soil 4 years ago?
Yeah, no, it absolutely did play a part for New Zealand. They're a nation that are incredibly proud. They're very family orientated. They're a very humble and grateful nation. And I think, that was the first time that people had paid to watch women's rugby ever in New Zealand. So that automatically makes that squad go, we want to give back to our country and our communities and everybody who's turned out and made this the spectacle that it is. So it definitely adds so much to it. And being in that stadium when England were playing against New Zealand, you felt the crowd with New Zealand. And that is a really tough. I've been in New Zealand, I've played in New Zealand, I've played in France, where everybody is against you. It's really hostile. It's really tough. And that just gives you that additional lift. It was a massive advantage. And I think for England, they've been the trailblazers for so long, both on the pitch, off the pitch, the way that they interact with their fans, the incredible role models. And I think they will have that as well. That is that they want to do it for everybody that's turning out. This is going to be the biggest sporting event in England this year. And they will absolutely want to do it justice. And it will give them that little extra bit of energy when they might need it, that little bit of inspiration, all those kind of things definitely play into it. So as I said, they've been trailblazers. So they want to be able to thank everybody and show everybody why they're trailblazers, because they can be world champions.
Yeah, Rachel is right to be confident, as should I be, that England will walk away as champions for this year's Rugby World Cup. A couple of episodes ago, we also spoke to Australia's Piper Duck about her preparations for the tournament. So if you want to go inside the Australian camp, you can find that episode further up the feed. Finally, for our Best Bits episode, we wanted to bring you some insight about what is involved in a football or soccer for Todd transfer window, something I know very well from my time presenting on Sky Sports News. I roped in the help of European football expert Kevin Hatchard, and alongside Edward and Todd, we revealed some of the secrets behind one of the most intriguing parts of the sport.
If you think how many people play things like Football Manager, things like FIFA, where you're putting teams together yourself, the transfer element of that is such a big part of it and so entertaining that I think that has fed into the interest in transfers. There are almost fans who are as interested, if not more interested, in the transfers and who their team's going to sign rather than the actual football once they've arrived. So, you know, you have, and Natalie will know this better than anyone, you have clubs scrambling like crazy to do these deals. And you end up with situations like back in 2015, David De Gea, the goalkeeper who was at Manchester United at the time, he was due to go to Real Madrid, and this had rumbled on for ages. And it looked as though finally they got the deal done. They'd agreed Keylor Navas, the Costa Rica goalkeeper, was going to go the other way, only for a fax machine to fail. And therefore, the documents to do with the tax element of the deal did not go through. And so you have this multi-million-pound transfer, one of the most recognizable goalkeepers in the world, and the deal doesn't go through because the fax machine
done
breaks.
in by a fax machine.
That's it. And it's that kind of idiocy almost that makes it all the more fascinating, because you've got these huge multi-million-dollar or pound institutions, and they can't get a fax machine to work, or there's a miscommunication and things just go wrong. It's brilliant to watch.
It's as your parents say, isn't it? Don't leave anything until the last minute.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The football club seem to ignore that.
But I think the fax machine has been culled. I don't think we have to worry about a fax machine so much now.
Oh, not in Germany. They still have a fax machine in Germany.
Really?
Don't worry about that. Yeah,
I don't even know
Spain,
where to buy fax paper now.
Well, yeah. And in Spain, they still use a thing called the burofax. You might remember the famous burofax, which is like it's an old school way of sending important documents. And when Lionel Messi made his transfer request at Barcelona, when one of the windows that he decided he wanted to go, he sent it officially to the club via burofax. So yeah, there are
like
some
snail mail.
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of an old school way of sending it kind of in physical form.
Is that like
very much used in Spain.
the old sort of credit card when you have to do that on the machine to sort of that type of thing? That's what it reminds me.
Like a wax tablet with papyrus or something like that, that kind of thing.
Let me just ask this as I can. I'm going to bring this back to Edward and his part of the world. Edward, how does this reverberate down in Singapore and that part of where you're from and reporting from? Is it big of a shake on the sports landscape?
It is, and I think as Kev said, it is about the drama. And I mean, obviously I used to live in the UK, so it was a lot easier to follow transfer deadline day there. Now you've got the kind of BBC live updates that I've that continue to keep you up to date with what's going on. But I used to stay up long into the night until we hit that kind of 0000. We hit midnight. It does seem, though, I've got to say, in the last few windows that less business is happening right up until the last minute. And it almost seems like these 24-hour news cycles now are trying to generate stories and keep the audience with them. We've heard that this might happen. And then you wake up the next morning and actually none of that actually happened. I don't know. Do you feel, Kev or Natalie, that we're not going into the last few minutes these days as much as
Natalie's lived this. Here we go. Natalie, you've lived it.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. There's a bit of artistic license at times. So there were times where we would stage things, shall we say. So I was on with a very famous presenter called Jim White, and often we'd get someone who worked behind the scenes to give him a piece of paper, and he'd turn around to the camera and be like, oh, breaking news, or this is going to happen, or there was nothing on the paper. It was just fake to bring a bit of drama to what might have been a quietish
trade secrets.
Day. Yes.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't have said anything, so keep that between us.
I, for one, am shocked. I'm outraged.
I'm sorry.
Kev's just taken his headphones off and thrown them on the ground.
I know, I'm furious.
Kevin, let's talk about 2025. And what do you think, what do you anticipate that last 24 hours we get to February and it's crunch time and there's teams like Chelsea's or Man U's that they need to make a move. They have to do something and there's no pieces out there to grab. What's the last 24 hours going to be like?
Yeah, I think you will still get some scrambling because I think what is really interesting now, I mentioned the PSR regulations earlier on. What that means is deals are ever more complex. So if you look at some of the deals that have happened between clubs, for example, Newcastle and Forest did some quite complex business. Aston Villa did some deals with Juventus that kind of helped out both teams' accounts. And you're going to have that more and more because clubs are very wary of what can we spend, how much wriggle room do we actually have. And so those are deals that are quite complex. The other thing as well is that because you've had those new regulations, clubs are a little bit slower to move. And because they're slower to move, you tend to get a domino effect. Now, if that happens later in the window, then it is going to take a little bit of time. And so you may get to the stage where in the last few days of the window, clubs really are panicking because they're thinking we've not been able to get any of this done. We really do need to. And so I think it is interesting. I don't think that the volume is there that was once there, but I think there is still a willingness to get deals done and teams simply have to.
What are the mechanics like, though? Take us from point A to point B. Is there a conversation, a text sent? Hey, my guy wants to come to your team. We need to unload this guy. How does that all break down from just communication point of view?
Yeah, agents and clubs are talking to each other all the time. Clubs will give agents an idea of the kind of profile of player that they're looking at. It's a very detailed operation with a lot of the best run clubs now. They'll have lists and lists and lists. They'll have data profiles. They'll have all kinds of things. People used to get very antsy and very kind of outraged at the idea of tapping up. Oh, I can't believe that you spoke to our player. That's outrageous. I mean, that happens all the time. All the time now. I mean, it used to, when it used to come out that kind of thing happened, people were very prim about it and were like, this is outrageous. Can't believe you've been talking behind our back. Now everybody does it. They do it with managers. They do it with players. I mean, you look at, for example, what happened earlier in the season with West Ham when they changed their manager. Julian Lopetegui was still taking training while West Ham were talking to other managers. So that's the kind of thing that happens with players. That's just a reality of the business. So then clubs will talk. They'll tend to get, I'll be interested to see what Natalie thinks about this, but generally what I find is that clubs will have this idea. They will talk to a player and say, look, are you up for it? What kind of money would you be looking for? What kind of contract length would you be looking for? And if they've broadly got an agreement with the player about them wanting to come, then they'll talk to the other club involved. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to go through all the hassle and the embarrassment of making a bid to a club. And then the player goes, oh, no, I'm not interested in that. I'm not going there. That looks really embarrassing. So I think you do by nature have to do the deal with the player first. And then you go club to club. And then once that's all done and everything's agreed, you have to send all the paperwork off to the relevant league, whoever it happens to be around the world. You'd need to send the contract with the player, the transfer agreement between the two clubs, and that's got all kinds in it. How are you going to pay? Is it in installments? Is it up front? How's that going to work? Is there a buyback agreement? Is there a sell-on fee? Some clubs will sell a young player and say, right, if you sell them on, we want 20, 30, 40% of that fee. So there's all kinds of things that go into it.
There you go, an insight into what goes on behind the scenes during a football or soccer transfer window. You can listen to that full episode further up the feed. Plus, we have a very similar chat to demystify the NFL draft with Super Bowl winner Jason Bell. That's well worth a listen as well.
And that is all we've got time for this episode. Just a reminder, This Sporting Planet is so much more than just this podcast. There's a website for you to enjoy at thissportingplanet.com, and we are all across social channels like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube too. And it's there that you can get daily updates from the world of sport and hear from the biggest stars like tennis star Novak Djokovic, England captain Leah Williamson, or Chelsea's Club World Cup winning coach Enzo Maresca. We are the world's view on sport, no matter where it is, no matter which sport, and you are, of course, invited to be part of the tribe.
Thank you for listening to these 2 special episodes, looking back on some of our best bits from the last few months. We'll be back with our regular episodes in September as the calendar year reaches a conclusion with some huge events like the Ryder Cup and the Ashes, as well as the conclusion of the Cricket and Rugby World Cups. We look forward to speaking to you then, but until then, from myself and everyone in the Sporting Planet team, goodbye.